The doctor's hands were shaking when he pulled back the white sheet. My 16-year-old son's face. I didn't recognize it. Swollen. Purple. Blood crusted around his eye sockets where his clouded, blind eyes used to be. 3 grown men did this. With baseball bats. To a kid who couldn't even see them coming. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. My name is Victor, and 22 hours ago, I was just another retired guy living a quiet life in a decent neighborhood outside Detroit. I ran a small security consulting business from home. I mowed my lawn on Saturdays. I helped my son Oliver with his homework every night. Oliver lost his sight when he was 9. Brain tumor. The surgery saved his life, but took his vision. He adapted better than I ever could have. Learned Braille in 6 months. Memorized every corner of our neighborhood. He was independent, brave, stubborn as hell. That's why when my phone rang at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the voice on the other end said, "Mr. Hayes, this is Detroit Memorial Hospital. Your son has been admitted to emergency surgery," my entire world stopped. What happened? My voice came out flat, cold. Old training kicking in. "He was assaulted, sir. You need to come now." I don't remember the drive. I remember my wife Morgan screaming when I told her. I remember my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I remember pulling into the emergency bay and running through those sliding doors like my legs were on fire. The nurse tried to prep me. "Mr. Hayes, he's stable, but the injuries are severe. Where is he?" She led me down a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Every step felt like walking through concrete. When we reached the ICU, there was a cop standing outside the room. Young guy. Looked nervous. "Are you the father?" he asked. I nodded. "We'll need a statement, but the doctor wants to speak with you first." Dr. Nathaniel Ross met me outside the door. Mid-50s, gray beard, eyes that had seen too much. He didn't sugarcoat it. "Your son has 3 broken ribs, a fractured skull, internal bleeding in his abdomen, and his left arm is shattered in 2 places. We've stopped the bleeding, but the next 48 hours are critical. Can I see him?" He hesitated. "Mr. Hayes, it's not easy to see your child like this. I've seen worse." I hadn't. Not when it was my own son. He opened the door. The beeping machines. The tubes. The bandages covering most of Oliver's head. His left arm in a cast suspended by wires. His chest rising and falling too slow. I walked to the bed, sat down in the chair beside him, put my hand on his right hand, the only part of him that didn't look broken. "Dad." His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here, buddy. I'm right here." His fingers squeezed mine. Weak, but there. 3 guys. I was walking home from the library. They said I was in their territory. His breath hitched. Pain, fear, all of it pouring out. I told them I was just walking. I didn't know. Then one of them laughed and said it didn't matter. They wanted to teach me a lesson. My jaw clenched. "Did you see them?" "Dad, I can't see." Stupid question. But Oliver kept talking. I heard them. One was called Blake. Another one kept calling someone Dominic. The third guy? Evan, I think. Blake said, "Grab the bats." I tried to run, but I tripped. They caught me. And then, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. They hit me. Over and over. I begged them to stop. I told them I was blind. Blake laughed and said that made it easier. Something inside me cracked. Something I'd kept buried for 5 years since leaving Delta Force. The part of me trained to hunt, to eliminate threats, to end lives without hesitation. But I took a breath. Slow. Controlled. "You're safe now, Oliver. I promise you, this will be handled." Morgan burst into the room, her face streaked with tears. She collapsed beside the bed, holding Oliver's other hand, sobbing. The cop came in. Detective Adrian Cole. Mid-40s, tired eyes, coffee stain on his shirt. "Mr. Hayes, I need to ask your son some questions." Oliver repeated everything. The names. The attack. The location, near Riverside Park, 2 blocks from our house. Adrian wrote it all down. Then he sighed. "I'll be honest with you, Mr. Hayes. Without witnesses, these cases are tough. Kids in gangs, they don't talk. Nobody saw anything. Nobody knows anything. My son just told you their names. First names. In a neighborhood with 100 Blakes and Dominics. I'll do what I can, but do more than you can. Adrian looked at me. Really looked. Maybe he saw something in my eyes. Maybe he didn't. But he nodded and left. Morgan stayed with Oliver while I stepped outside. The hospital hallway was too bright, too clean, too normal for what just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Paige, away at college in Ohio. Dad, is Oliver okay? Mom just called me crying. I'm coming home. I didn't respond yet. I walked to the hospital chapel. Empty. Quiet. I sat in the back pew. I wasn't a violent man anymore. I left that life behind. I chose family, peace, normal. But 3 men just beat my blind son with baseball bats and laughed while doing it. And somewhere in this city, they were walking free. I closed my eyes. Took another breath. Justice first. The right way? Legal. Clean. But if the system failed, I'd make sure they understood who they chose to hurt. 48 hours crawled by like weeks. Oliver made it through surgery, but he barely spoke. When he did, it was only to ask if the lights were on. He couldn't tell anymore. The head trauma had damaged something the doctors couldn't fix with scalpels. Morgan stayed at the hospital around the clock. I went home once to shower and change. The house felt wrong. Oliver's backpack still sat by the front door where he'd left it before walking to the library. His white cane leaned against the wall. I picked it up. There was blood on the handle. That's when Paige walked in. She'd driven 6 hours straight from Ohio. When she saw me holding that cane, she broke down. I held her while she cried into my shoulder. Who would do this to him, Dad? He never hurt anyone. I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. The next morning, I drove to Riverside Park. Early. The sun was just coming up, fog still hanging over the grass. I found the spot easily. Blood stains on the concrete path. A cracked piece of wood, part of a baseball bat, lying in the bushes. I photographed everything with my phone. There were houses nearby. Someone had to have seen something. I knocked on the first door. An older woman answered, chain lock still on. I'm Victor Hayes. My son was attacked here 2 days ago. Did you see or hear anything? Her face went pale. I'm sorry. I didn't see nothing. She closed the door before I could say another word. Same response at the next 3 houses. Fear. Nobody wanted to talk. At the 5th house, a young mother named Brooke opened the door with a toddler on her hip. She glanced around nervously before whispering, I saw it. I called 911. But I can't testify. Those boys work for Tristan Cole. He runs everything in this neighborhood. If I talk, my family's in danger. Tristan Cole, I repeated. Who is he? Local crime boss. Drugs, protection rackets, you name it. Blake, Dominic, and Evan are his enforcers. They've been terrorizing people for years. You have a doorbell camera, I noticed. She hesitated. I do. Did it catch anything? Her eyes filled with tears. Everything. But if I give it to you, I'll make sure your name stays out of it. Please. That was my 16-year-old blind son they beat. She covered her mouth, tears spilling over. She nodded, went inside, and came back with a USB drive. This footage auto-uploads to the cloud. I downloaded it before I got scared. Nobody knows I have this. I took the drive. Thank you. Back at the hospital, I handed the USB to Detective Adrian. He plugged it into his laptop in the waiting room. The footage was crystal clear. Timestamp. 3:12 p.m. Oliver walking with his cane, careful, slow. Then 3 young men, early 20s, stepped out from behind a van. They surrounded him. Words were exchanged. Then Blake, the tallest one, shoved Oliver. He stumbled, tried to walk away. That's when Dominic pulled a wooden baseball bat from his backpack. What happened next made Adrian turn away from the screen. Oliver on the ground, curled up, 3 bats swinging. Again and again. Oliver's cane rolling away across the pavement. His arms up trying to protect his head. And they were laughing. The attack lasted 93 seconds. When they finally stopped, they high-fived each other and walked away like nothing happened. Oliver didn't move for another 2 minutes before someone off camera ran over to help. Adrian closed the laptop. His hands were shaking. I'll have them arrested by tonight. Good. But it wasn't that simple. By evening, Adrian called me. We picked up Blake Morrison, Dominic Fletcher, and Evan Price. All three are in custody. Arraignments tomorrow morning. I was at the courthouse at 8 a.m. sharp. So was Morgan. Paige stayed with Oliver. The courtroom was cold, sterile. The three attackers were broad and wearing orange jumpsuits, hands cuffed. Blake looked bored. Dominic stared at the ceiling. Evan, the youngest, looked nervous. Their lawyer was a sharp-dressed woman named Quinn Harper. She stood up, confident, unbothered. Your Honor, my clients are being charged based on unreliable witness testimony and questionable video evidence. We request bail be set reasonably. The prosecutor, a tired-looking man named Grant Matthews, argued back. These men brutally assaulted a disabled minor with deadly weapons. They're a danger to the community. The judge, an older man named Judge Raymond Grant, barely looked up from his papers. Bail is set at $50,000 each. Next case. Morgan gasped. That's it. I watched as all three of them posted bail within 2 hours. Their families paid. By noon, they were walking out of the courthouse, free. Blake saw me standing by my truck. He smirked. Actually smirked. Dominic whispered something to Evan, and they all laughed. Quinn Harper walked past me, heels clicking on the pavement. Mr. Hayes, I'd advise you to prepare for disappointment. Charges like these rarely stick. I didn't respond. I just watched them leave. That night, I made a call. A number I hadn't dialed in 5 years. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Victor? That really you? Hey, Julian. Julian Cross. My old Delta Force teammate. We'd run operations in 12 countries together. Saved each other's lives more times than I could count. I heard what happened to Oliver. I'm sorry, brother. I need intel. 3 names. Blake Morrison, Dominic Fletcher, Evan Price. And a crime boss named Tristan Cole. You going to war? No. I'm going to bury them the legal way. But I need to know who I'm dealing with. Give me 24 hours. Julian called back in 12. Tristan Cole's a piece of work. Runs a network of dealers and muscle across Detroit. Blake, Dominic, and Evan are low-level enforcers, but they're protected. Tristan's got connections. Cops, judges, politicians. Your boy wasn't random, Victor. That park's part of Tristan's territory. They beat Oliver to send a message to the neighborhood. My blood went cold. They targeted a blind kid to scare people? That's the word on the street. I hung up and sat in the dark of my living room. Upstairs, Morgan was crying herself to sleep. Down the hall, Paige was packing to go back to school, but didn't want to leave. And my son was lying in a hospital bed, broken, because some coward wanted to prove a point. Detective Adrian called the next morning. His voice was flat. Victor, we got a problem. The defense filed a motion to suppress the video evidence. They're claiming it was obtained illegally because we didn't get a warrant for the doorbell footage. That's insane. It was given voluntarily. I know, but Quinn Harper's good. She's arguing Brooke didn't have authority to share footage of a public space without notifying the subjects. It's a reach, but the judge might bite. When's the hearing? Friday. Friday came. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched Quinn Harper dismantle our case piece by piece. The footage, the only hard evidence we had, was ruled inadmissible. Oliver's testimony was unreliable because he couldn't visually identify the attackers. The charges were reduced to simple assault. Possible plea deal. Probation. I walked out of that courthouse knowing the system had just failed my son. And that's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. Back off, or your daughter's next. I stared at that text message for a full minute. Then I screenshotted it and forwarded it to Detective Adrian. He called me back within 5 minutes. Victor, this is a direct threat. I'm sending officers to your daughter's campus right now. Already on it. I was halfway to Ohio before he even called. Paige was in her dorm room when I arrived. Safe. Confused why I showed up unannounced. I didn't tell her about the threat right away. I just made sure campus security knew to watch her building. Morgan called while I was driving back. Oliver was being discharged from the hospital. Physically stable enough to come home, but emotionally he was shattered. He refused to leave his room once we got him settled. Wouldn't eat unless Morgan brought food to his bedside. Wouldn't talk about what happened. The kid who used to navigate our entire neighborhood independently now refused to take 5 steps without holding someone's hand. A week later, we were back in court. Preliminary hearing. The prosecutor, Grant Matthews, looked defeated before it even started. Quinn Harper walked in with her 3 clients, all dressed in suits, looking like college kids instead of violent criminals. Judge Raymond Grant presided again. He looked bored. Mr. Matthews, present your case. Grant shuffled papers. Your Honor, the victim, Oliver Hayes, positively identified the attackers by voice. We have medical records showing the severity of injuries consistent with the attack described. We have witness testimony. Hearsay. Quinn interrupted smoothly. The witness who called 911 refuses to testify. The video evidence was suppressed. All you have is the word of a blind 16-year-old who admits he never saw his attackers. He heard them. He heard their names. Blake, Dominic, and Evan are common names, Your Honor. Without visual identification or physical evidence tying my clients to the scene, this is circumstantial at best. Judge Grant sighed. I'm inclined to agree. Mr. Matthews, unless you have something concrete, I'm dismissing the attempted murder charges. We'll proceed with misdemeanor assault. Bail remains. Morgan stood up from the gallery. That's it. They almost killed my son. The judge banged his gavel. Ma'am, sit down or you'll be removed. I pulled her back into her seat. She was shaking, crying. Outside the courthouse, Blake, Dominic, and Evan stood on the steps, laughing with their lawyer. Blake lit a cigarette, looked directly at me, and winked. That night, I contacted a lawyer I knew from my security consulting work. His name was Nathaniel Pierce, former prosecutor turned defense attorney. He'd seen the inside of the system and knew how broken it was. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Victor, I'll be straight with you. Without that video, without witnesses willing to testify, you're fighting uphill. These guys have a good lawyer, and apparently some protection from higher up. Tristan Cole. Nathaniel nodded. I've heard the name. He's got people in places. Cops who look the other way. A few city council members on his payroll. If those 3 work for him, they've got cover. So what do? Keep pressure on the prosecutor. Rally the community. Make noise. Sometimes public outcry forces the system to act when it doesn't want to. I took his advice. I organized a community meeting at the local rec center. 50 people showed up. Families who'd been terrorized by Tristan's crew for years. Parents whose kids were threatened. Business owners who paid protection money. One by one, they shared their stories. But when I asked who'd be willing to testify, to go on record, the room went silent. An older man named Preston finally stood up. Victor, we want to help. But we've seen what happens to people who cross Tristan. 2 years ago, a guy named Mason tried to report him to the cops. His house burned down a week later. Family barely made it out. So we just let them win? We survive. That's all we can do. The meeting ended with nothing. No witnesses. No momentum. Just fear. But then Brooke, the woman who gave me the doorbell footage, pulled me aside as people were leaving. I can't testify in court, but I made copies of that video. If it helps you another way, use it. I thanked her and went home. That night, I uploaded the video to a private server and sent it to 3 local news stations with a detailed account of what happened to Oliver. By morning, one of them ran the story. Blind teen brutally beaten while walking home. Attackers walk free. The video went viral. Not just locally, nationally. By noon, my phone was flooded with messages. Strangers offering support. Advocacy groups reaching out. A few former military brothers checking in. And then I got a call from Julian. Victor, you just painted a target on your back. Tristan's not going to like this attention. Good. Let him come. That's not how you train me to think. You always said emotion gets you killed. This is different. I know it is. That's why I'm worried. He was right to worry. 2 days later, Paige called me, panicked. Dad, someone left an envelope on my car. There are pictures inside. Pictures of me walking to class. At the library. At the coffee shop. What's happening? I told her to stay inside, lock her doors. I contacted campus police again, but this was bigger now. This was organized intimidation. I called Detective Adrian. They're threatening my daughter. Federal law, right? Crossing state lines. I'll contact the FBI. This just became their problem too. Within 24 hours, an FBI agent named Mason Clark showed up at my door. Early 40s, sharp suit, no-nonsense attitude. Mr. Hayes, threatening a federal witness's family is a serious crime. We're opening an investigation into Tristan Cole's organization. This just gave us the opening we needed. What about my son's case? We'll run parallel. If we can prove Tristan ordered the attack, everyone goes down. Blake, Dominic, Evan, and their boss. How long will that take? Months. Maybe longer. I felt my jaw tighten. My son's a prisoner in his own home. My daughter's being stalked. I don't have months. Mason looked me in the eye. I know your background, Mr. Hayes. Delta Force. Black Ops. But you need to let us handle this the right way. I didn't respond. He left his card and walked out. That night, Oliver finally spoke more than 2 words. He came downstairs, Morgan guiding him, and sat at the kitchen table. Dad, I heard the news story. Everyone's talking about me. You're safe, Oliver. That's all that matters. I don't feel safe. I hear every sound now. Every car outside. Every door closing. I can't sleep. Morgan wiped her eyes. Oliver's hands were shaking. I just want them to pay for what they did. That's all. They will, son. I promise you. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure the system would deliver. And somewhere across town, Blake, Dominic, and Evan were still free. Still laughing. Still untouchable. Oliver's physical therapy started 3 weeks after the attack. Twice a week, Morgan drove him to the rehabilitation center. He hated it. Hated being weak. Hated needing help with things he used to do alone. The therapist, a kind woman named Ivy, worked with him patiently, rebuilding strength in his shattered arm, teaching him how to walk without favoring his broken ribs. But the real damage wasn't physical. One night, I heard him crying through his bedroom door. Not loud, quiet, muffled sobs that made my chest ache. I knocked softly. Oliver, go away, Dad. I opened the door anyway. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, face in his hands. I can't do this anymore. I can't even walk to the mailbox without freaking out. I hear footsteps behind me, and I panic. What kind of life is this? I sat beside him. You survived something most people couldn't. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. I feel broken. I didn't have words to fix that. So I just sat with him until he fell asleep. Meanwhile, Morgan and I were falling apart. She wanted to move. Sell the house. Leave Detroit. Start over somewhere safe. Victor, they threatened Paige. They're still out there. What are we waiting for? Justice. Justice. Her voice cracked. Our son can't sleep. Our daughter's being watched. And you're waiting for a system that already failed us. If we run, they win. I don't care about winning. I care about our family being alive. We didn't speak for 2 days after that fight. The trial date was finally set. 6 months away. Grant Matthews, the prosecutor, called to prepare me. Mr. Hayes, I won't lie to you. Even if we get this to trial, convictions aren't guaranteed. Juries are unpredictable. Quinn Harper's going to paint your son as an unreliable witness. She'll argue reasonable doubt. What are our chances? He paused. Honestly, 50-50, maybe less. I hung up and stared at the wall. That's when Julian called again. Victor, I'm in town. Let's meet. We met at a bar on the outskirts of the city. Julian looked the same as he did 5 years ago. Buzzed hair, scarred knuckles, eyes that had seen too much. I did more digging on Tristan Cole. He's got 3 city councilmen in his pocket, 2 cops on payroll, and a judge who owes him favors. Which judge? Raymond Grant, the one presiding over your son's case. My blood ran cold. You're sure? Tristan helped Grant's nephew beat a drug charge 2 years ago. Made evidence disappear. Grant owes him. So the case was rigged from the start. Julian leaned forward. Victor, I've got a team. 5 guys. All former operators. We can make this problem disappear. Tristan, Blake, Dominic, Evan gone. Clean. No trace. I looked at him. My oldest friend. The man I'd trusted with my life in a dozen war zones. No. Victor, I said no. I'm not that person anymore. And I won't teach my son that violence is the answer. Your son was the victim of violence. And I'll get him justice the right way. Through the system. Julian shook his head. The system's broken, brother. Then I'll fix it. He left cash on the table and walked out. I sat there alone, nursing a drink I didn't finish. 2 weeks later, the community fundraiser happened. A local church organized it to help cover Oliver's medical bills. Hundreds of people showed up, donated, shared our story. It felt good, like maybe we weren't alone in this. But then, during the event, I got a text. Unknown number again. Nice event. Cute family. Drop the case, or next time it's your wife. I showed it to Agent Mason Clark. He traced the number. Burner phone. Untraceable. Mr. Hayes, this is escalating. I strongly suggest you consider protective custody for your family. We're not hiding. Then you're taking a risk. I've taken worse. But that night, I installed cameras around the house. Motion sensors. Reinforced the locks. I slept with my old service weapon within arm's reach. Morgan noticed. You're preparing for war. I'm preparing to protect my family. This isn't the life I signed up for, Victor. I know. I'm sorry. She didn't respond. Just went to bed. 3 days later, the story exploded. A national news outlet picked it up. Retired Delta Force soldiers' blind son beaten. Attackers still free. My phone didn't stop ringing. Interview requests. Podcast invitations. Advocacy groups wanting to rally behind Oliver. And then it happened. The district attorney's office called. A new voice. Not Grant Matthews. Mr. Hayes, this is District Attorney Fiona West. I've taken over your son's case personally. The public attention on this matter has made it a priority. We're upgrading the charges back to attempted murder and adding hate crime enhancements for targeting a disabled victim. What changed? Let's just say certain inconsistencies in how this case was handled have come to light. Judge Grant has recused himself. A new judge will be assigned. And we're not offering any plea deals. I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still have to win. The new trial date was moved up. 3 weeks away. Blake, Dominic, and Evan were rearrested. This time, bail was denied. They'd be held until trial. I watched the news footage of them being led into county jail in handcuffs. Blake wasn't smirking anymore. That night, Oliver asked me a question. Dad, do you think they'll actually go to prison? I think we've got a real shot now. What if they don't? I looked at my son. 16 years old. Blind. Scarred. But still here. Still fighting. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. But right now, we focus on the fight in front of us. He nodded. Morgan came into the room, handed me a cup of coffee, and sat down beside me. I'm sorry I wanted to run, she said quietly. You were scared. That's normal. You were scared too. You just didn't show it. I smiled. Old habit. For the first time in weeks, we felt like a family again. But Tristan Cole was still out there. And 3 weeks until trial felt like an eternity. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen going over everything in my head. The evidence. The testimonies. The holes Quinn Harper would try to punch through our case. My phone lit up at 2 a.m. Paige calling. Dad, something happened. My heart dropped. Are you okay? I'm fine. But campus police just arrested someone outside my dorm. He had a camera with a telephoto lens. Pictures of me. Hundreds of them. Where are you right now? Police station. They want me to give a statement. I'm on my way. I drove 6 hours straight. When I arrived, Agent Mason Clark was already there. He'd been monitoring the situation. The man they arrested was named Kyle Brennan, 24, known associate of Tristan Cole. He had photos of Paige going back 3 weeks. Time-stamped. Locations marked. Mason pulled me aside. This is federal stalking. Interstate. We've got him on multiple charges. And he's talking. Talking about what? Tristan Cole. He says Tristan ordered him to intimidate your daughter. Get her scared enough that you drop the case. We've got recorded phone calls, text messages, everything. Can you use that against Tristan? Already building the case. But here's the thing. Victor, your son's story just went national again. Every news outlet's covering it now. Retired Delta Force father fighting for his blind son while a crime boss tries to silence him. The public's eating it up. I didn't care about publicity. I cared about my family being safe. But Mason was right. By morning, the story had exploded. Social media was flooded with support for Oliver. Hashtags trending. People demanding justice. And then something unexpected happened. District Attorney Fiona West called me. Mr. Hayes, we need to talk. Privately. We met at her office. She looked exhausted but determined. The attention on this case has forced some hands. The mayor's office is getting flooded with calls. The police commissioner's under pressure. And certain people who were protecting Tristan Cole are suddenly backing away. Why? Because nobody wants to be associated with the guy who ordered a blind kid beaten and then stalked his sister. It's political poison. She slid a file across the desk. Blake Morrison, Dominic Fletcher, and Evan Price are scheduled for trial in 2 days. But here's what you don't know. Evan's lawyer reached out this morning. He wants a deal. What kind of deal? Full testimony against Blake, Dominic, and Tristan in exchange for a reduced sentence. He's willing to admit everything. Who ordered the attack, why they targeted that neighborhood, all of it. I leaned back. Why would he flip now? Because sitting in county jail for 3 weeks gave him time to think. He's 21 years old, looking at 25 to life. His public defender convinced him he's the youngest, the least culpable. If he cooperates, he walks in 8 to 10 years instead of dying in prison. Do you trust him? I trust that he's scared. And scared people tell the truth. 2 days later, I was back in court. New judge this time. Judge Fiona Hartman. Mid-50s, sharp, no patience for games. The courtroom was packed. Media in the back rows. Community members who'd followed the story. And sitting in the front, Oliver, Morgan, and Paige. Blake and Dominic were brought in first. Orange jumpsuits. Hands cuffed. Blake's cocky smirk was gone. Dominic looked pale. Then Evan was brought in separately. He didn't look at the other two. Quinn Harper stood. Your Honor, my client Evan Price has agreed to cooperate fully with the prosecution in exchange for a plea agreement. Judge Hartman nodded. Mr. Price, do you understand that by pleading guilty and testifying, you are waiving certain rights? Evan's voice was shaky. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. Evan took the stand. The prosecutor asked him to explain what happened. Tristan Cole runs our crew. He controls 5 neighborhoods in Detroit. If someone steps out of line, we handle it. About 2 months ago, Tristan said the area near Riverside Park was getting soft. People weren't paying protection money. He wanted to send a message. What kind of message? Something violent. Something public. He said pick someone weak. Make an example. My hands clenched into fists. We were driving through the area when we saw the kid, Oliver, walking alone with a cane. Blake said he looked like an easy target. We followed him for 2 blocks. Then Blake told me and Dominic to grab the bats from the trunk. Did you know Oliver was blind? Evan's voice dropped. Not at first, but when we surrounded him, he told us. He said he couldn't see. Blake laughed, said that made it easier. Morgan covered her mouth, tears streaming. We hit him. I don't know how many times. He fell. He was begging us to stop. But Blake kept going. He wanted to make sure the message was clear. And after the attack, we reported back to Tristan. He paid us $500 each. Told us we did good. The courtroom erupted. Judge Hartman banged her gavel. Quinn Harper tried to cross-examine, but Evan didn't waver. He repeated everything. Named names, provided details only someone who was there would know. Blake and Dominic's lawyers scrambled, asked for a recess, but the damage was done. Then the prosecutor dropped the hammer. Your Honor, based on Mr. Price's testimony, the FBI has issued a warrant for Tristan Cole's arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit assault, witness intimidation, and racketeering. Agent Mason stood up from the gallery. Tristan Cole was apprehended this morning attempting to cross the border into Mexico. He's currently in federal custody. The courtroom exploded again. Reporters rushing out to file stories. Community members cheering. I looked at Oliver. He was crying. Not from pain this time. From relief. Blake and Dominic's trial was fast-tracked. With Evan's testimony, the physical evidence, and Tristan in custody, their lawyers recommended plea deals. But Fiona West wasn't offering any. They beat a blind child with baseball bats for money. They're going to trial. And I'm putting them away for decades. That night, I sat with my family in our living room. All of us together for the first time in weeks without fear hanging over us. Paige hugged Oliver. You did it. You didn't give up. Oliver smiled. A real smile. We did it. But the fight wasn't over yet. The trial was still coming. And I knew Quinn Harper wouldn't go down without a fight. Evan's deal was finalized within 48 hours. 8 years in federal prison with possibility of parole in 6. In exchange, he'd testify against Blake, Dominic, and Tristan in every trial. Agent Mason arranged a protected meeting between Evan and the prosecution team. They wanted everything documented before the trial started. I was allowed to attend as the victim's father. We met in a secure FBI office downtown. Evan sat across from me, flanked by his lawyer and a federal agent. He couldn't look me in the eye. District Attorney Fiona West started the questioning. Evan, walk us through how you became involved with Tristan Cole. Evan's voice was quiet. I grew up in the same neighborhood. Tristan recruited me when I was 17. Said I could make easy money running errands. It started small, delivering packages, collecting debts. Then it got worse. When did it turn violent? About a year ago. Tristan wanted muscle. People who'd enforce his rules. Blake and Dominic were already doing it. They brought me in. How many assaults were you involved in before Oliver Hayes? Evan hesitated. 5, maybe 6. Fiona didn't flinch. And Tristan ordered all of them. Yes. He'd tell us who, where, and how hard to hit them. Sometimes it was business owners who didn't pay. Sometimes it was just people he wanted to scare. Tell me about the day you attacked Oliver. Evan finally looked up. His eyes were red. Tristan called us that morning. Said he needed a statement made near Riverside Park. Someone visible. Someone weak. He didn't care who. Just make it brutal. Why that park? He was losing control of the area. People stopped paying protection. He wanted them scared again. I clenched my jaw but stayed silent. Evan continued. We drove around for an hour looking for someone. Then we saw Oliver. Walking alone. Blake said he looked like an easy target. We didn't know he was blind until we got close. What happened when you realized? Blake didn't care. He said it made the job easier. Dominic agreed. Evan's voice cracked. I should have stopped it. I didn't. Why not? Because I was scared of Tristan. If I refused, I'd be next. Fiona leaned forward. Do you have any proof Tristan ordered the attack? Evan nodded. Text messages. Voice recordings. I kept everything. Tristan always communicated through burner phones, but I saved the numbers. The messages. Mason took the evidence bag Evan's lawyer handed over. A phone. Cracked screen, old model. This has everything. Everything from the last year. Tristan's orders. Photos of the weapons he gave us. Even the payment receipts. Mason plugged the phone into a laptop. Scrolled through. His expression darkened. This is a gold mine. Dates, times, locations of at least a dozen criminal activities. Conspiracy charges across the board. Fiona turned to me. Mr. Hayes, do you have any questions for Evan? I looked at the kid sitting across from me. 21 years old. Scared. Broken. Why did you keep swinging? Oliver was on the ground. He was begging. Why didn't you stop? Evan's face crumpled. Tears started flowing. I don't know. I was pumped up. Blake was yelling at us to keep going. I didn't think. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I stood up. You're right. It doesn't fix anything. I walked out. The trial started 1 week later. The courtroom was even more packed than before. National media had set up cameras outside. Protesters held signs supporting Oliver. A few held signs condemning the attackers. Blake and Dominic sat at the defense table with Quinn Harper. Both of them looked tense. Quinn, on the other hand, looked as composed as ever. Judge Fiona Hartman entered. This court is now in session. The People versus Blake Morrison and Dominic Fletcher. Charges include attempted murder, aggravated assault, and hate crimes enhancement. The prosecution opened strong. Fiona West laid out the timeline. The evidence. Evan's confession. The text messages from Tristan ordering the attack. Then they called their first witness. Brooke, the woman who gave us the doorbell footage. She was nervous but steady. I saw everything from my window. 3 men surrounding a teenager with a cane. They had baseball bats. I called 911 immediately. Quinn Harper cross-examined. Did you see my clients' faces clearly? Yes. From how far away? Maybe 50 feet. At 50 feet, can you be certain it was them? I reviewed the footage from my doorbell camera. It was them. Quinn smirked. The footage that was ruled inadmissible. Objection, Fiona said. The footage was inadmissible in the preliminary hearing. This is a new trial under a new judge. Judge Hartman nodded. Sustained. The footage will be reviewed for admissibility in this proceeding. The footage was played in court. The room went silent. Even the media stopped scribbling notes. Oliver on the ground. 3 men with bats. 93 seconds of brutality. 2 jurors were crying by the end. Quinn Harper tried to argue the footage was prejudicial. Judge Hartman denied the motion. Next, the medical examiner testified. Described Oliver's injuries in detail. Fractured skull, broken ribs, shattered arm, internal bleeding. In my professional opinion, if the attack had continued another 30 seconds, Oliver Hayes would have died. Then Oliver took the stand. Morgan helped him to the witness box. He sat down, hands trembling. Fiona approached gently. Oliver, can you tell the jury what happened on the day you were attacked? Oliver's voice was quiet but clear. I was walking home from the library. I heard footsteps behind me, then voices. One of them said I was in their territory. I told them I didn't know. I was just walking home. What happened next? Someone shoved me. I stumbled. I told them I was blind. I couldn't see where I was going. One of them laughed. Then I heard something swing through the air. It hit my arm, then my ribs, then my head. Do you remember anything else? I remember begging them to stop. I remember the pain. And I remember waking up in the hospital and not knowing if I'd ever walk again. The courtroom was silent. Quinn Harper stood for cross-examination. Oliver, you said you couldn't see your attackers. How can you be sure it was my clients? I heard their names. Blake, Dominic, Evan. First names. Common first names. I heard their voices. I'll never forget their voices. Quinn paused. You're 16. You were in shock, in pain. Isn't it possible you misheard? Oliver turned toward her voice. I'm blind, ma'am. My hearing is all I have. I didn't mishear. Quinn sat down. She had nothing else. The trial continued for 3 more days. Evan testified. Tristan's text messages were entered as evidence. Expert witnesses analyzed the attack patterns. By the final day, Quinn Harper looked defeated. Closing arguments were powerful. Fiona West spoke directly to the jury. These 2 men beat a blind child for money. They laughed while doing it. They showed no mercy. Now it's your turn to show them what justice looks like. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On the charge of attempted murder, guilty. Blake dropped his head. Dominic closed his eyes. Morgan squeezed my hand. Oliver sat perfectly still, listening. Justice had finally come. The guilty verdict hit the news within minutes. Blake Morrison and Dominic Fletcher, convicted. Sentencing scheduled for 2 weeks out. But there was still one piece missing. Tristan Cole. He'd been arrested at the Mexican border, but the case against him was still being built. Agent Mason called me the day after the verdict. "Victor, we need your help." "With what?" "Tristan's got properties all over Detroit. Safe houses, stash locations, places he used to run his operation. We've got warrants, but finding everything is like looking for needles in a haystack. You were Delta Force. You know how to track targets. I'm retired. I know. But your son deserves to see the man who ordered his beating go down for everything. Not just the attack. The drugs, the weapons, the whole empire." I thought about Oliver. Still afraid to leave the house alone. Still waking up screaming from nightmares. "When do we start?" Mason picked me up the next morning. We drove to an FBI field office where a tactical team was already gearing up. Maps of Detroit spread across tables. Photos of Tristan's known associates pinned to boards. "We've identified 8 locations," Mason explained. "Warehouses, apartments, a storage facility." Evan gave us addresses, but Tristan's smart. He compartmentalized everything. Each location only has part of the picture. Then we hit them all at once. Exactly. I wasn't carrying a weapon. I wasn't law enforcement. But Mason wanted me there for my tactical insight. Reading patterns. Identifying escape routes. Things I'd done 100 times overseas. The first raid happened at dawn. A warehouse on the east side. FBI breached the doors, flooded in with rifles raised. I stayed outside with Mason. They found crates of illegal firearms. Enough to arm a small militia. Documentation linking purchases back to Tristan. The second location was an apartment complex. 3rd floor unit. When agents entered, they found 2 of Tristan's crew members destroying evidence. Burning documents in the bathtub. They were arrested on the spot. Mason's phone rang. Another team had hit the storage facility. Found 20 kilos of cocaine, stacks of cash, and a ledger detailing every transaction Tristan made over the past 3 years. "This is enough to bury him," Mason said. But Tristan's lawyer was already working angles. Quinn Harper had taken his case too. She filed motions to suppress evidence, claiming illegal search and seizure. Judge Hartman denied every single one. "Mr. Cole, the evidence against you was obtained with valid federal warrants based on credible witness testimony. Your motions are denied." Tristan's trial was set for 6 weeks out, but he wasn't going quietly. 2 days later, I got a call from Julian. "Victor, word on the street is Tristan put a bounty out. $50,000 to anyone who makes your family disappear before his trial." My blood ran cold. "You're sure?" "Dead sure. I've got sources inside his old crew. They're talking. Some are staying away because of the heat. But others, they need the money." I called Mason immediately. Within hours, my house was under FBI protection. Agents parked outside 24/7. Paige was given a security detail at her college. Morgan and Oliver were told not to leave the house without an escort. It felt like we were prisoners again. But then something shifted. The media coverage intensified. National outlets picked up the story of Tristan putting a hit out on a blind kid's family. Public outrage exploded. The mayor held a press conference. "Tristan Cole represents everything wrong with organized crime. This city will not tolerate threats against victims seeking justice." The police commissioner announced a task force dedicated to dismantling what remained of Tristan's operation. And one by one, Tristan's associates started flipping, offering testimony in exchange for reduced sentences. The empire he'd built for a decade was collapsing in weeks. FBI raided his remaining properties, found more drugs, more guns, more evidence. Every raid added years to his potential sentence. Mason called me after the final raid. "We got everything. Financial records, communication logs, witness testimony from 9 former associates. Tristan's looking at life without parole. When's the trial?" 4 weeks. "And Victor, we want Oliver to testify again." I hesitated. "He's been through enough." "I know, but the jury needs to see the human cost of Tristan's orders. Your son is the face of what this man did." I talked to Oliver that night. sat with him in his room. The FBI wants you to testify against Tristan. You don't have to. You've already done more than enough. Oliver was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. Dad, if I don't testify, he might walk. Or get a lighter sentence. I can't let that happen. Not after everything. You're sure? I'm terrified. But I'm sure. Morgan wasn't happy about it. He's 16, Victor. He shouldn't have to relive this again. It's his choice. She looked at Oliver. Baby, you don't have to do this. Oliver reached for her hand. Mom, I need to. For me. For weeks later, Tristan Cole's trial began. The courtroom was packed again. Media frenzy outside. Security doubled because of the bounty threat. Tristan sat at the defense table in a suit, looking calm. Too calm. Like he still believed he'd walk. Quinn Harper opened with a predictable defense. My client is a businessman who made mistakes. But ordering an attack on a child? That's a leap the prosecution can't prove. Fiona West stood up. We'll let the evidence speak. Evan testified first. Detailed every order Tristan gave. Every payment. Every threat. Then former associates took the stand. One after another, they confirmed Tristan's control over the crew. His orders to intimidate, assault, and eliminate problems. The financial expert presented the ledger. Transactions showing payments to Blake, Dominic, and Evan on the day after Oliver's attack. Then it was Oliver's turn. He walked to the stand with his cane, Morgan guiding him. He sat down, hands folded. Fiona approached gently. Oliver, do you know who Tristan Cole is? I know he's the man who ordered 3 people to beat me. How do you know that? Because Evan Price told the court. Because the evidence shows it. Because I'm sitting here with permanent injuries because someone thought sending a message was worth destroying a kid's life. The jury was locked on him. What do you want to say to Tristan Cole? Oliver turned toward the defense table. Even though he couldn't see, he faced Tristan directly. I was just walking home. I didn't know about territories or gangs or power. I was just a kid trying to get home before dinner. You took that from me. You took my safety, my independence, my trust in people. I'll carry that for the rest of my life. And I hope you carry it too. The courtroom was silent. Quinn Harper didn't cross-examine. Tristan's fate was sealed. The prosecution spent 3 more days presenting evidence. Text messages, financial records, testimony from former crew members. Every piece of evidence pointed directly at Tristan Cole as the architect of Oliver's attack and a dozen other crimes. Quinn Harper fought back hard. She attacked witness credibility, questioned the chain of evidence, painted Tristan as a scapegoat for a broken system looking for someone to blame. But the jury wasn't buying it. On the 4th day, Fiona West called a surprise witness. Someone not listed in the original trial documents. The prosecution calls Detective Adrian Cole to the stand. I froze. Cole. Same last name as Tristan. Adrian walked to the witness box, looking uncomfortable. He was sworn in and sat down. Fiona approached. Detective Cole, what is your relationship to the defendant? Adrian's jaw tightened. Tristan Cole is my younger brother. The courtroom erupted. Judge Hartman banged her gavel for order. Quinn Harper shot to her feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The prosecution is ambushing the defense with, sit down, Ms. Harper. Judge Hartman said firmly. Detective Cole is here voluntarily. Continue, Ms. West. Fiona turned back to Adrian. When did you learn your brother was involved in criminal activity? I've known for years. I tried to ignore it. Tried to convince myself he was just making bad choices. But when Oliver Hayes was attacked and I caught the case, I couldn't ignore it anymore. What did you do? I investigated. Even though it was my brother's crew. Even though I knew what I'd find. I gathered evidence. I handed it to the FBI. And I testified before a grand jury to help secure his indictment. Tristan's face went red. He leaned toward Quinn, whispering angrily. Fiona continued. Why are you testifying now? Adrian looked directly at Tristan. Because I took an oath to uphold the law. Not to protect criminals. Not even when they're family. My brother ordered a brutal attack on a blind teenager. He's terrorized our community for years. That ends today. Quinn tried to discredit him during cross-examination. You expect this jury to believe you testify against your own brother? I don't expect anything. I'm just telling the truth. Isn't it true you've always resented Tristan? That you were jealous of his success? Adrian's voice stayed steady. My brother's success was built on fear, drugs, and violence. There's nothing to be jealous of. I'm ashamed we share a name. Quinn had no response. But then she made a motion that stunned everyone. Your Honor, I'd like to call a character witness for the defense. Judge Raymond Grant. My head snapped up. The judge who originally presided over Oliver's case. The one who recused himself. Judge Hartman looked skeptical. This is highly unusual, but proceed. Raymond Grant took the stand. He was in his late 60s, gray hair, expensive suit. He looked calm, almost smug. Quinn approached. Judge Grant, how long have you known Tristan Cole? About 5 years. He's done charity work in the community, donated to youth programs, helped families in need. I wanted to stand up and scream, but Morgan grabbed my hand. Would you describe him as a violent man? Not at all. Tristan's always been respectful, generous, even kind. Fiona stood for cross-examination. Her expression was ice-cold. Judge Grant, isn't it true that Tristan Cole helped your nephew beat drug trafficking charges 2 years ago? Grant's face paled. I don't know what your nephew, Blake Grant, was arrested with 3 kilos of cocaine in his vehicle. The evidence mysteriously disappeared from the police evidence locker. A week later, charges were dropped. Isn't that correct? Quinn jumped up. Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, Fiona said calmly. This goes directly to witness credibility and potential bias. Judge Hartman nodded. Overruled. Answer the question, Judge Grant. Grant shifted uncomfortably. There was insufficient evidence to yes or no. Did Tristan Cole arrange for that evidence to disappear? Grant's voice dropped. I don't have direct knowledge of. Fiona pulled out a document. This is a sworn affidavit from former evidence clerk Marcus Lang. He states that Tristan Cole paid him $10,000 to destroy evidence in Blake Grant's case. He also states that you personally thanked Tristan at a private dinner 2 weeks later. The courtroom exploded again. Judge Hartman stood. Judge Grant, you are excused from this witness stand. And you should be aware that the Judicial Ethics Board will be receiving a full report on this testimony. Raymond Grant's face went white. He stumbled out of the witness box and left the courtroom. Quinn Harper looked shaken for the first time. Judge Hartman turned to the jury. You will disregard Judge Grant's testimony entirely. It has been impeached. But the damage to Tristan's defense was catastrophic. His own character witness had just been exposed as corrupt. Fiona wasn't done. Your Honor, the prosecution has one more witness. We call Blake Morrison. Blake, the man who led the attack on Oliver. The one serving 25 years. He was brought in wearing prison orange, wrists shackled. He sat in the witness box, looking broken. Fiona approached. Mr. Morrison, you were convicted of attacking Oliver Hayes. Who ordered that attack? Blake's voice was barely a whisper. Tristan Cole. Did he pay you? $500. Cash. The day after. Why are you testifying now? Blake looked at Tristan. No defiance left. Just exhaustion. Because I'm already doing 25 years. Lying for him won't change that. And maybe if I tell the truth, it'll mean something. Quinn had no questions for him. Closing arguments began the next day. Fiona West stood before the jury. Tristan Cole built an empire on fear. He ordered violence, intimidation, and terror to maintain control. Oliver Hayes was just one victim among dozens. But Oliver fought back. His family fought back. And now it's your job to hold this man accountable for every life he destroyed. Quinn Harper tried one last time. The prosecution wants you to believe Tristan Cole is a monster. But the evidence is circumstantial. Testimony from criminals trying to save themselves. Don't let emotion cloud your judgment. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On the charge of conspiracy to commit assault, guilty. On the charge of racketeering, guilty. On the charge of witness intimidation, guilty. Guilty on all 17 counts. Tristan dropped his head into his hands. Quinn sat down, defeated. Morgan burst into tears. Oliver sat quietly, letting it sink in. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I gave a short statement. Justice was served. That's all that matters. But I knew the real fight wasn't over yet. Sentencing was still to come. And I wanted to be there when Tristan heard his fate. Sentencing day arrived 3 weeks later. The courtroom filled early. Victims of Tristan's other crimes came to watch. Community members who'd lived in fear for years. And us, Oliver, Morgan, Paige, and me. Blake Morrison and Dominic Fletcher were scheduled to be sentenced first. They were brought in separately, both in prison uniforms, both looking like shadows of the cocky young men who'd smirked outside the courthouse months ago. Judge Hartman reviewed their cases. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Fletcher, you were both convicted of attempted murder, aggravated assault, and hate crimes. The evidence showed a brutal, unprovoked attack on a disabled minor. Do you have anything to say before sentencing? Dominic spoke first. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything. But I'm sorry. Blake said nothing, just stared at the floor. Judge Hartman's expression was stone. The court sentences Blake Morrison to 27 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 20 years. Dominic Fletcher, you are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 18 years. The gavel came down. Both men were let out. Then it was Tristan's turn. He was brought in wearing a suit again, but it didn't matter. He looked smaller now. Defeated. Judge Hartman addressed the courtroom. Before I pass sentence, the victims have the right to make impact statements. Who wishes to speak? Fiona West stood. Your Honor, the Hayes family would like to address the court. Morgan went first. She walked to the podium, hands shaking, but her voice was strong. Tristan Cole, you didn't just hurt my son. You hurt my entire family. You took away our sense of safety, our peace. For months, we lived in fear. My daughter was stalked. My husband was threatened. And my son, her voice broke. My 16-year-old son will never be the same. He has nightmares. He's terrified to leave the house. You did that. Not for survival. Not for protection. For money and power. I hope you think about Oliver every single day you spend in prison. She walked back to her seat, tears streaming. Paige went next. I'm 19 years old. I should be focused on school, friends, my future. Instead, I spent months looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone was going to hurt me because my brother was brave enough to seek justice. You're a coward, Mr. Cole, and I hope you rot. Then Oliver stood. Morgan helped him to the podium. He placed his hands on the wood, facing forward even though he couldn't see the man who'd destroyed his life. My name is Oliver Hayes. I'm 16 years old, and I'm blind. On the day your men attacked me, I was walking home from the library. I didn't know about gangs or territories. I was just trying to get home before dinner. They beat me with baseball bats until I couldn't move. I begged them to stop. They laughed. His voice was steady, clear, powerful. I spent weeks in the hospital, months in physical therapy. I still can't walk outside without panicking. I still wake up hearing the sound of those bats hitting me. You took my childhood. You took my independence. But you didn't take my voice. And I'm using it now to make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. A man who orders children beaten to prove a point. I hope you spend the rest of your life thinking about what you did to me. The courtroom was silent. Even the reporters had stopped typing. Oliver turned and walked back to his seat, guided by Morgan. I'd never been more proud of him. Judge Hartman looked at Tristan. Mr. Cole, do you wish to make a statement? Tristan stood slowly. For a moment, I thought he'd apologize. Show some remorse. Instead, he spoke with cold arrogance. I didn't order anyone to attack that kid. I'm being railroaded by a system that needed a scapegoat. I'm innocent. Judge Hartman's jaw tightened. Mr. Cole, a jury of your peers reviewed the evidence and found you guilty on 17 counts. The evidence was overwhelming. You ran a criminal enterprise that terrorized this city for years. You ordered violence, distributed drugs, and intimidated witnesses. And when a blind teenager was beaten nearly to death, you tried to silence his family. She opened a folder. The court has reviewed your criminal history, the victim impact statements, and the sentencing guidelines. Tristan Cole, you are hereby sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, you will serve consecutive sentences for witness intimidation, racketeering, and drug trafficking, totaling an additional 40 years. Tristan's face went white. This means, Mr. Cole, you will die in prison. You will never again walk free. You will never again terrorize a community. Bailiff, remove him. Tristan was led away in handcuffs, shouting obscenities. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Hartman didn't stop it this time. Outside, the media surrounded us. Cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Hayes, how do you feel now that justice has been served?" I stepped forward, keeping it simple. Justice was served. Now my family heals. Another reporter called out, "Do you think the sentence was fair?" Fair would have been my son never getting attacked in the first place. But this is as close to justice as we can get. What message do you have for other victims of violence? I looked directly at the camera. Don't give up. The system isn't perfect, but it can work if you fight for it. Stand up, speak out, and don't let fear win. We walked away from the cameras, from the courthouse, from the nightmare that had consumed our lives for months. That night, we had dinner together as a family. All four of us. No reporters, no lawyers, no threats. Just us. Oliver actually smiled. A real, genuine smile. "It's over, isn't it?" "It's over," I said. Paige raised her glass of water. To Oliver, the bravest person I know. We clinked glasses. Morgan squeezed my hand under the table. Later that night, I stood on the back porch, looking out at the yard. The same yard Oliver used to run through when he was younger, before the tumor, before the blindness, before the attack. Julian called. I saw the news. Life without parole. That's a win, brother. It is. You did good, Victor. You fought the right way. I had no choice. I couldn't teach my son that violence solves problems. No, but you taught him that justice is worth fighting for. That's better. I hung up and went inside. Oliver was in his room, listening to an audiobook. Morgan was reading in bed. Paige was video calling friends, laughing. Normal. Finally, normal. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up to check the locks. The nightmare was over, but the healing was just beginning. The media attention faded after a few weeks. The cameras disappeared. The reporters moved on to the next story. But for us, life continued quietly, slowly rebuilding what had been shattered. Oliver's physical therapy became a routine. 3 times a week, Morgan drove him to sessions with Ivy. His shattered arm regained strength. His ribs healed. But the invisible scars took longer. He still flinched at loud noises. Still hesitated before leaving the house. But small victories started appearing. 2 months after the sentencing, Oliver asked me to walk with him to the corner store. Just 2 blocks. He held his cane in one hand and my arm in the other. "You don't have to hold on if you don't want to," I said. "I know, but I want to." We walked slowly. He was tense at first, listening to every car, every footstep. But by the time we reached the store, his shoulders had relaxed a little. "I did it," he said quietly. "You did." Morgan threw herself into advocacy work. She connected with organizations supporting victims of violent crimes. Started speaking at community events about our story, helping other families navigate the legal system. She found purpose in the pain, turned it into something meaningful. Paige returned to college but changed her major. She'd been studying business. Now she wanted to study criminal justice, become a victim's advocate. Oliver inspired me, she told us over video call. If he can fight that hard for justice, I want to help others do the same. I went back to running my security consulting business, but things were different now. Families who'd seen our story reached out. People dealing with neighborhood crime, domestic threats, stalking. I helped them develop safety plans, worked with local police, connected them with resources. I wasn't a soldier anymore. I was something better. A protector without needing a weapon. 3 months after sentencing, I received a letter. Federal prison postmark. From Evan Price. I almost threw it away. But curiosity got the better of me. Mr. Hayes, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't expect it. But I wanted you to know that every day in here, I think about what I did to Oliver. I've started working with a prison counselor, trying to understand why I followed Tristan, why I didn't stop when I should have. I'll be in here for the next 6 years. I'm using that time to become someone different, someone better. I'm getting my GED, taking anger management classes. One day, when I get out, I want to help kids like me avoid the choices I made. I'm sorry. That word feels empty, but it's all I have. Evan Price, I showed the letter to Oliver. He read it with his fingers, tracing the Braille translation Morgan had made for him. What do you think? I asked. Oliver was quiet for a long time. I think people can change, but it doesn't erase what they did. Do you forgive him? I don't know yet. Maybe one day, but not today. That was fair. Spring arrived. The neighborhood started feeling like home again. The FBI's crackdown on Tristan's organization had broken the gang's grip on the area. Families felt safer. Kids played in the parks again. A community center opened near Riverside Park, the same place where Oliver was attacked. The city renamed it Hayes Community Center in Oliver's honor. We attended the dedication ceremony. The mayor spoke. This center represents resilience. It represents a community that refused to be broken by fear. And it represents one young man's courage to stand up and demand justice. Oliver stood at the podium, Morgan beside him. He spoke without notes, his voice steady. I didn't want to be a symbol. I just wanted to walk home from the library. But if my story helps even one person find the courage to speak up, to fight back against violence, then maybe something good came from something terrible. The crowd erupted in applause. That summer, Oliver did something that shocked all of us. He signed up for a program that trained guide dogs for the blind. He wanted to regain his independence, but on his own terms. The day he met his guide dog, a golden retriever named Copper, I saw something in his face I hadn't seen in over a year. Joy. Copper changed everything. With the dog by his side, Oliver started venturing out alone again, walking to the library, meeting friends, reclaiming the life that had been stolen from him. Detective Adrian Cole stopped by the house one afternoon. He looked different, lighter. I wanted to thank you, he said. Testifying against Tristan was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was the right thing. I can sleep at night now. How's your family handling it? My parents don't speak to me anymore. They think I betrayed Tristan. But my kids understand. They're proud of me. That's what matters. We shook hands. Two men who'd chosen justice over easy paths. November came. Oliver's 17th birthday. We celebrated at home, just the four of us. Cake, presents, laughter. Morgan gave him a new Braille reader. Paige got him a subscription to audiobooks. I gave him something different. A letter of acceptance. Oliver had applied to a summer program for blind students interested in law and advocacy. He'd been accepted. He ran his fingers over the Braille, reading it twice to make sure it was real. I got in. You got in. He hugged me, tears streaming down his face. I'm going to help people, Dad. Kids like me, so they don't feel helpless. I know you will, son. That night, as I sat on the porch, Morgan joined me. We made it, she said softly. We did. Do you ever think about what could have happened? If the system had completely failed? If Tristan had walked? Every day? But it didn't. And we're here. She rested her head on my shoulder. I'm proud of you. You could have handled this the Delta Force way. But you didn't. I had something more important to protect than my pride. I had a family to teach. Inside, Oliver was laughing at something Paige said over the phone. Copper was curled at his feet. The house felt warm, safe, alive. Justice had been served. The men who hurt my son were behind bars. The man who ordered it would die in prison. But more than that, My son had learned that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, is always worth it. And that lesson was worth more than any revenge I could have taken. The nightmare was over. The healing wasn't complete, but we were on our way. Together, as a family.